Well, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today it is back again with F1 race reviews, Thomas's F1 race reviews. It is 10 rounds to go in the season, Dutch GP edition. We have, well, really a lot to talk about. Quite a surprisingly interesting race going into this. Thought there was going to be a bit of rain. We didn't quite get it. We got a little bit and a bit of a tease, really, throughout the race with rain. But aside from that, we actually got quite a bit of action, so we got a lot to discuss today. Experimenting with the old microphone might be a bit better than the wireless headset microphone, which is here, so let me know how that goes. As always, if you're interested in supporting the community, go and join the Discord. Link will be in the description and in the comments down below, and go support me on Spotify, because I'm now releasing these podcasts over there. But let's get into everything Dutch GP related. Okay, so with a lot to cover today, I guess we're going to get straight into where we always begin, and that is with the incidents. Many crashes today, quite a few controversial ones as well. Now, obviously, we do the questions on this podcast. 4 questions today, all coming in from a very dedicated viewer and listener, Hubot. So we're going to get straight into the first one he has sent in, which is... who was at fault for the Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson incident? Now, this is probably the most 50-50 conversation we're going to have in this podcast. What I believe personally, and I think is probably the most sort of popular opinion, is that Sainz did not deserve that penalty. You heard him on the radio, getting on. His engineer goes, they gave you a penalty. They gave me a penalty? No way. Why would they give me a penalty? Obviously, sounding very confused. And understandably so. He did absolutely nothing wrong. They were side by side going into turn 1, and they were, there was significant overlap for majority of the corner. And why the stewards decided to give Carlos a penalty, I don't really know. If I was the steward in that situation, the way I saw it is there was significant overlap between the two cars. The reason for the contact is Lawson, just coming out of the corner, just got a tiny bit of a swapper going onto the exit, which caused him to drift out wide and collide with Carlos. It's a mistake. Mistakes happen, but, mistakes can't go unpunished. So if I was the steward, I would have given a 5-second penalty for Lawson. Yes, it hampered both their races, but it's an innocent mistake from Lawson. It's one which every driver makes at least once. It is punishable, but it's not like a big drive-through or anything. I'd give a 5-second penalty, and definitely not a 10-second penalty for Sainz. Absolutely. There's no other word apart from outrageous, really, the way I described that. It really stupid from the FIA. So yeah, definitely 5-second penalty for Lawson. Definitely the most controversial one in this race, and yeah, a big error from the FIA. But moving into the second incident, I guess the other bit of context I wanted to discuss was Antonelli and Leclerc. Now, obviously, this one is a little bit more clear-cut, it's safe to say. Obviously, side by side into turn 3, Leclerc on the high line, Antonelli on the low line. And I guess the best way to explain it is, we saw Verstappen and Bortoleto talking in the press conference on Thursday, explaining why they don't use that high line. Sorry, why they don't use that low line. And it's because sort of the way they have the banking, so it banks up to the high, but then at the low it sort of flattens out, like how you would have at, say, like a Daytona or a Charlotte, like an oval course. It sort of flattens out at the bottom and essentially creates an unmarked apron. Now, Antonelli going into turn 3 was behind. Granted, Leclerc was on cold tyres, having just come out of the pits, but it was just never on for Kimi, unfortunately. But that is racing. The 10-second penalty he was awarded fully deserved. It's a rookie mistake. It's a mistake which people with a little bit more experience under their belts don't tend to make. And that was the reason that he made it. It's just a misjudgment, really. Obviously, Kimi is now Italian enemy number one, even though he is Italian, which is quite funny, taking out a Ferrari. But it is a rookie mistake. And it leads me on nicely to another question from Hubot, who asks, Antonelli has only got 1 point in the last 5 races. Is this a concern or just a bad run? Now, obviously, it has been a pretty poor run of form in the last, five to 6 races. Now, is it cause for concern? I don't think so, because if you look at every rookie throughout history, all rookies have slumps, right? They all have slumps, Fernando Alonso, 2001, drove a Minardi, didn't score a single point, and look at where he got to in his F1 career. You look at Esteban Ocon, who drove a Manor and was, didn't really score many points at all. And, like, these rookies, with every rookie in history, they all have slumps. So, I don't think it's personally. I know a lot of people would jump on this train and say, oh, Kimi's career is over, off to WEC or GT3 or go back to F2 or whatever they want to say. But I don't think it's cause for concern. Like, this is a common thing. Rookies have poor runs, but like we've seen what Kimi can do already. He third place in Canada, phenomenal performance. Had the sprint pole in Miami, so he is no slouch. We know this. He will bounce back eventually, whether it's in 1 race time, whether it's in 5 races time, whether it's the start of next season. It's hard to tell, but it's not a cause for concern, really, in my opinion. I think, like, he'll get back into it when he can, and we'll just forget all about it, really. Okay, and then another incident I want to talk about. Lewis Hamilton, the other Ferrari, obviously, a double DNF for Ferrari, big L's for Ferrari this weekend. Not gonna lie, bit of a rip. But we take those W's if you're a Williams fan, 100%. P5 for Albon. But yeah, the other incident I wanted to talk about was obviously Lewis Hamilton crashing out on about lap 22, I want to say, roughly thereabouts. And the thing with Lewis, which is, I'm going to give my brutal opinion, with Kimi, it was a rookie mistake. With Lewis, it was a rookie mistake. We don't often see that from Lewis very often, but it really was. Obviously, it was sprinkling, spitting rain when the mistake happened, and he went wide, got a little bit wide, clipped the painted white line and the AstroTurf, and it from there just understeered into the wall, couldn't stop it from going in the wall. And it's a rare mistake, from someone who's won 7 world titles, has over 100 Grand Prix wins. You don't really expect these mistakes. And, it is a shame to see, because we know how good Lewis is, we know what he's capable of, and to be making these silly errors, it doesn't do him any favours, it doesn't do Ferrari any favours. And yeah, it's not good at all. Obviously, the reason he went into the wall, for those of you who might not be as aware, with rain and how it sort of affects the cars, when rain falls on a circuit, those painted lines, those track limit lines, and the AstroTurf on the exit of corners, they become immensely slippery for a few reasons. One, the rubber is discarded on the track limits, so when the water falls, it basically absorbs the rubber and picks it up and makes it even more slippery. And two, if you pour water on paint, it becomes slippery, and this is what happens. Paint is slippery, and that is what caused Lewis to hit the wall. If he hadn't have clipped the painted line, he probably would have been okay. But this is one thing which a lot of racing drivers know to look out for in changeable conditions is always stay away from the white painted lines. But yeah, it is a rookie mistake from Lewis. It's a shame, but he's just gonna have to pick himself up and move on to Monza next week, and that's going to be in a race which he needs to succeed in, really. And then actually, two more things I wanted to discuss. We're going to just quickly gloss over them. Firstly, Max Verstappen's save on lap 1. Oh my god, what a save going into turn 3. Absolutely phenomenal. I don't think, obviously there was a lot more that happened in this race, so this is going to be a moment which is going to get glossed over pretty severely. But I wanted to talk about it, because to go around the outside on cold tyres on lap 1 at turn 2, oversteer, clip the grass, remember he clipped the grass as well, kept it going and managed to pull it up without hitting Oscar, it needs to be commended. Like, there is a reason Max is a 4-time champion, and one of those reasons is car control. Absolutely bang on car control. And really, when I saw him go wide, I thought it was going in the wall. I thought he was going to get a swapper, hit that left-hand wall, and that was going to be race over for Max Verstappen, and probably that Lando Norris as well. But he kept it, and, credit where credit's due. Phenomenal save. And then also, wanted to touch upon the Leclerc and Russell overtake. Now, a lot of people were quick to jump on the, it was Leclerc's fault, he went off the track, and, it was Russell's fault, he didn't leave Leclerc enough room. No. That was racing at its finest. I don't care if Charles was like a millimetre over the white line. That is how you overtake someone. To go around the outside at the right left-hander at Zandvoort, especially when there wasn't really a gap to begin with, he really stuck his nose in there, is commendable and a really good effort. And I think it goes to show that Leclerc might just be starting to get a little bit desperate, not going to lie. But aside from that, absolutely phenomenal overtake. It's a shame, he DNF'd in the end, because if he had finished, that would have been, I think, looked on a lot more. But a phenomenal overtake from Charles. And let's move into some other areas to discuss now. So, I guess now we're probably going to have to move into the biggest talking point of this race. Once again, the talking point, McLaren, Piastri and Norris. And finally, starting to see a crack in McLaren's form. Obviously, engine failure for Norris with 10 laps to go, which was really, if I'm being completely honest, was the last thing on my bingo card for the Dutch Grand Prix. But yeah, absolutely came out of nowhere. Norris was chasing him down for the win. I was thinking, we're probably going to get a battle here at the end. But engine failure. And an interesting stat which I saw in race format, that was Norris's first mechanical retirement since Belgium 2019 after the It's Broken incident, which is absolutely mental. Like, mental. Goes to show just how rock solid the McLaren was, or has been for the past 5 years. But, finally we're starting to see a crack, and it did, unfortunately, take away from a bit of a battle at the end of the race. A lot of people were saying, it's very similar to Rosberg and Hamilton in 2016, with Hamilton having a failure at the Malaysian Grand Prix. And it is pretty much the exact same, because it has now opened up, a 34-point lead for Piastri in the driver's standings. Pardon me. Yeah, it has now opened up a 34-point lead in the driver's standings, which is not insurmountable by any means, but it does make it trickier and places a bit more pressure on Norris's shoulders now to be able to close that up. Leading on to another question from Hubot. I love you, bro. He asks, and let me pull it up, is the championship too far gone for Lando after that retirement? Obviously, I guess this is the question. This is the question being thrown around now after this race. And honestly, no, it's not. I don't think it's impossible for Lando to win this. You know, they always say anything can happen in Formula One, and that is 100% true. There is a reason that phrase exists. Because all it takes, like, it might, 34 points might seem like this insurmountable, enormous gap. But if you think about it, all it takes is, a mechanical DNF for Piastri, one mistake, maybe they come together, or Piastri comes together with another driver and doesn't finish, or finishes outside of the top 10th, or in 9th, or in 10th, or whatever. But if anything along those lines happen, it could be up to a 17, 18, up to 25% or 25 point swing at the end of a Grand Prix. So it is not over by any means for Lando Norris. A lot of people are quick to jump on the "it's so over" mindset, especially these days in Formula One when reliability is a lot less of a factor. But like we look at examples of the past, 2021, 5 rounds to go, we thought Verstappen had it wrapped up. Then Lewis got the new engine in, dominated Jeddah, dominated Abu Dhabi, and dominated Brazil, and we're thinking, mate, Lewis is back on, and he can win this championship. So, it can so easily swing the momentum in Formula One. I would say newer fans, I don't want to sound like that in a derogatory manner, but that's just the way I'd class it. But a lot of newer fans don't quite understand how easily it can swing it. It just seems like it's impossible to swing a gap these days due to just how rigid these cars are and how flawless and how easily they work and how not often they break down. But anything can happen in Formula One. The gap is not insurmountable, and in all honesty, I see that gap, closing come the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It's 34 points now. I could easily see it being, 10, 11, 12 points by Abu Dhabi. So it's not over yet. We've still very much got a title fight on our hands. And yeah, gutting for Lando Norris in this race. Also, wanted to mention Zach Brown's face after the race. We saw him in the pits as Hadjar runs past to his crew, but we'll get onto that later. But yeah, like, Norris is out and Piastri has won, and Snack Brown is all like, I've got a frown on my face. It's actually quite funny to look at. But yeah, so it is not an insurmountable gap. It is not impossible to catch up for Lando, but he's got to put in the effort, got to put in the hard work, and he might be rewarded at season's end, but we're just going to have to see how it pans out. But on to the next thing. So, moving on now, I guess, before we round off this podcast with, obviously, the Hadjar podium, one of the big talking points in this race, I wanted to touch upon a few of the other performances. We had quite a few drivers move through the field and up into pretty solid spots. So, firstly, Alex Albon, P17 to P5, go to the material there. 100%. What a phenomenal drive from Alex. A lot of people will jump on the wagons of a few of these things I'm going to talk about, and they're going to say, they got lucky with safety cars, and VSCs and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you've got to take the spots, and they capitalise. These drivers 100% capitalise. So Albon 17th to 5th, a really good effort there. Also, Behrman, pit lane start to 6th place. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. That is, I think, honestly, Ollie Behrman is getting quite good at this driving through the field thing. I don't know if it's Ayo Komatsu or Ocon helping him out or who's teaching him how to do this, but he's really getting into it. And, if he keeps putting in these drives, especially because we know how piss poor the Haas is over one lap, it looks good, and it's a good prospect for Ollie's career. So a really promising result today, P6. And then finally, Lance Stroll, P7. And I mean, who the hell would have predicted that? A lot of people, obviously Stroll, probably the most hated driver on the grid, maybe behind Colapinto, but don't quote me on that. But obviously, yeah, he's one of the most hated drivers on the grid. But credit where credit's due. I've always said that on his day, Lance Stroll is a good driver, and he showed it today again. Obviously, he had that contact with Bortoleto early on. That was deemed no further action, rightly so. It wasn't either of their fault. It was just 2 into 1 not going. But yeah, people tout him as a shit driver, which he is most of the time. But sometimes, he puts in those worldy performances, and today was one of those days. And I like it when he puts in those performances. It's a nice breath of fresh air from the usual Stroll that we see. But quite a few people with good drives through the field, and they should be commended a bit more, because it is impressive, and it is not easy to drive through the field like that. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to cover in this podcast, probably one of the feel-good moments of the season, Isaac Hadjar, sorry, getting his first podium in Formula 1, P4 to P3, and phenomenal drive. I mean, I've got a question here from Hubot. He asks, has Hadjar been the best rookie of the season? And honestly, without a doubt in my mind, yes, he has been. I mean, a lot of people thought that the rookie of the season was probably going to go to Kimi Antonelli or like Ollie Behrman. I don't think anyone expected Hadjar to perform the way he did. Had a few mid races in the middle of the year. Suzuka wasn't great. And there was a few other ones which I can't remember off the top of my head. Miami, I believe, was another. But apart from that, he's having a great season, and I think the podium is really the highlight. He didn't do anything wrong. Obviously, yes, he capitalised on Norris's engine failure, but then again, you got to be in it to win it. And it could have easily been George Russell in that P4 spot. It could have been Charles Leclerc in that P4 spot. But no, it was Isaac Hadjar, and he capitalised on a phenomenal race. So really good to see from him. And honestly, I hope there are many more to come, and I think there will be many more to come, because he's done a really good job. So really good to see. And apparently he broke the trophy afterwards, which is quite comical. First it was I destroyed the car, and now it's I destroyed the P3 trophy. So pretty funny. But yeah, really good to see Isaac Hadjar on that podium, and hopefully we see him up there a few more times. But there we have it, everybody. That brings us to the end of another podcast, another one of Thomas's race reviews. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Quite a bit to unpack today. I've summed it up, I think, to the best of my ability, so hopefully you all enjoyed. And I'm going to say, make sure you join the Discord server if you want to support the community. If you want to follow me on TikTok, a link will be in my bio as well. Go follow me on Instagram. For some reason, I think I post some things on there. And obviously, like and subscribe and hit that bell. And I'm going to sign off now. Stay safe. Have an awesome day. Make good choices. And I'm going to see you all in the next video, which may or may not be a top 10. Ooh, look at that. I dropped a little hint on the channel. Oh my god. Oh my god. But take care, everybody. Have an awesome day.